First of all, we have to say that we are pleased with the agreement reached. The agreement in question is a 4% consolidated pay increase for all workers. Obviously, that would be for some retrospective to the bargaining group's anniversary date, because some of them are January, some of them are April, and then we've got other groups which is July and August. So that increase will be effective from those dates. Plus, we will also see an increase in the allowance for the on-call, which will go up 4% as well. In terms of the agreement, like I said, like I've mentioned to my members, obviously the mandate was higher than the 4%, but obviously we've had to deal with the fact that the inflation dropped to 2.6%, and that actually happened whilst the negotiations was ongoing. And
how many people does this affect? How many people work for Mitie, and what's been the response?
Yes, it's close to 200 workers. So all of them will be benefiting from this agreement. And as I said, I accept the fact that many of our members in the general meeting, were very well attended general meeting. A lot of members were saying that actually, even though inflation had dropped, they weren't seeing the drop in prices in terms of supermarkets and the petrol pump, which is a fact. And those arguments we did use in the negotiations, even though the company was insisting that the inflation had dropped to 2.6, and the agreements they have reached in Mitie in the UK didn't equal what was being applied in Gibraltar.
It's been a difficult few years, what with the effect of COVID on the economy, with the cost of living. How do you see the picture? Sort of, are things improving in terms of being able to negotiate these pay rises and putting more money in people's pockets?
Yeah, it's difficult. You know, the situation is difficult. Many of workers, especially those on the lower pay bands, are finding it difficult to come to the end of the month. That's a reality. Many of them are feeling the pinch. Like I said, inflation is dropping, but the reality is another one on the ground level, and that is a difficult. We are happy, especially some of the where we have collective bargaining. We have reached agreements from 3% up to about 5%. So we are happy in terms of collective bargaining, but it's also true that there are difficulties, especially representing those at the lower end where we don't have a big workforce and we don't collectively bargain. So those are, those in effect are obviously being affected by the current inflation issues.
And do you see the picture improving at all?
Well, we hope so, but the reality is that we're seeing a very difficult world. You know, the fighting, what's happening in Gaza and Israel, what's happening in Ukraine. So the reality is we don't know what the future brings. But again, we have a big picture here which we are facing, which is whether there's going to be a treaty or not. So that, in effect, it's going to also impact what happens in Gibraltar. We are wishing for an agreement. Unite has been supportive of an agreement that obviously doesn't cross the red lines.